Consider this. When personal relationships unravel and digital tools are weaponized, how precisely does our legal system respond to the deeply personal act of online extortion? Today, we unravel a landmark Supreme Court case. It probes the chilling intersection of intimacy, cybercrime, and, well, the determined pursuit of justice in our increasingly connected world. What does this mean for your digital safety? How exposed are we all, really? Welcome to the Deep Dives. This is where we unpack complex topics from the sources, turning dense information into, hopefully, crucial insights. We offer you a shortcut to being truly well-informed. Our mission today is a deep dive into a significant Supreme Court decision from the Philippines, Tria y Cipriano v. People. That's officially cited as GR number 255583, decided on August 2, 2023. This case, it shines a stark spotlight on the evolving landscape of cybercrime, particularly digital robbery and online intimidation. It's quite a story. So let's pull back the curtain. Let's understand the players and the core charges in this compelling case. At the center, we have the petitioner, Axel Tria y Cipriano, and the private complainant, who's referred to as AAA, her name protected for privacy, obviously.
That's right. And Tria faced two very serious charges. First, robbery with violence against or intimidation of persons. That's under Article 294 of the Revised Penal Code. But here's the crucial twist, the modern angle. This was in relation to Section 6 of Republic Act 1175.
Ah, the Cybercrime Prevention Act.
Exactly. And then, separately, online libel.
A traditional crime really amplified by the digital realm.
Oh.
So from AAA's perspective, the complainant's side, how did the prosecution paint the picture? What happened?
Well, AAA's account paints a truly harrowing picture. She testified that her relationship with Tria, initially romantic, it quickly deteriorated. She described him becoming increasingly jealous, abusive, threatening. The situation escalated to a point where he allegedly sent incredibly vulgar and sexually explicit messages, just full of awful insults. And he even threatened to upload explicit photos in a sex video. The aim, to humiliate her and her family publicly. You can just imagine the terror.
That's a severe level of emotional and psychological intimidation.
Wow.
And it escalated even further after she tried to end the relationship, didn't it?
Precisely. When AAA attempted to break up with him, Tria allegedly hacked into her online business Facebook page. It was called Buy and Sell. He changed her password, locked her out completely, and then, in what can only be described as a chilling act of digital assault, uploaded a half-naked photo of her. The caption was, AAA Malabog Malate. Apparently, this photo was a screenshot from a video he'd shown her before.
Oh, that's awful.
And it gets worse. Another image with her face superimposed onto a naked woman's body was also uploaded, right there on her business page. It was a direct attack on her reputation, her livelihood.
That's just a profound violation on so many levels. So what was his ultimate demand after this digital attack? Was it just about humiliation?
No, his motive became very clear. Money. Tria allegedly demanded a hefty PHP 55,020 in exchange for deleting these highly compromising photos and giving her back control of her page.
55,000 pesos.
Yeah. He later agreed to a reduced amount, PHP 15,020, plus an additional PHP 5,000.0, supposedly for hotel expenses. This is when AAA, desperate, reported the matter to the CIDG anti-cybercrime group.
The Criminal Investigation and Detection Group's cyber unit.
Right. They set up an entrapment operation. Gaisano Mall. AAA handed him the marked PHP 15,000.00, signaled the CIDG team, and Tria was immediately arrested right there. And the prosecution's account, it was significantly corroborated by senior police officer 2 Benavente, a cybercrime investigator. He testified about extracting phone messages, even overhearing crucial phone calls between Tria and AAA.
What a dramatic turn. Now, every story, especially in court, has at least two sides.
Yeah.
What was Tria's defense? How did he respond to these grave accusations?
Tria, in his defense, completely denied everything. He claimed they met on OkCupid, had a consensual relationship. He even asserted that AAA herself would take photos and videos of their sexual encounters and send them to him.
Really? He shifted the blame for the images.
That's what he claimed, yes. He said he immediately deleted them out of fear his wife would find out.
Okay, so a very different narrative. What else did he claim?
He claimed he was the one who broke up with AAA back in July 2015. Said she was too possessive, demanded marriage. He even went so far as to allege AAA once shot him with his own gun.
Shot him?
Yes, but he claimed he never filed charges because of, well, his lingering affection for her. Crucially, he denied sending any threatening messages or contacting her after the breakup. His explanation for being at the mall that day, he said he was just helping AAA find a boarding house because she was supposedly being evicted.
helping her find a place to live.
That was his story. And as for the money, he maintained AAA voluntarily handed him the PHP 15,000, asked him to hold it because she didn't have a bag. He said he was arrested the moment he took it.
A starkly different narrative indeed. Quite the contrast. So with these two opposing stories, how did the courts handle it? What happened at the regional trial court?
The Regional Trial Court, Branch 6 in City, issued a joint judgment back on November 19, 2018. And this is where it gets interesting because the outcome was split. For the online libel charge, Tria was actually acquitted.
Acquitted on libel. Despite those shocking photo uploads. Why? What was the court's reasoning there?
The court found a critical problem with the information, that's the formal charge sheet. It alleged Tria hacked a specific Facebook account and uploaded particular defamatory content. But the prosecution's evidence, well, it created confusion. Which Facebook account was it exactly? What was the specific defamatory content being alleged versus what was proven? This lack of precision, this discrepancy, meant Tria couldn't adequately prepare his defense. It violated his basic right to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation against him.
Ah, a due process issue.
Exactly. The court essentially said if the prosecution can't clearly define the crime alleged in the information, the accused can't be fairly tried on that specific charge.
That makes sense. A critical point about fairness. So acquitted on libel, but what about the more serious robbery charge?
That was a different story. For criminal case number 300, the robbery charge, Tria was found guilty. Guilty beyond reasonable doubt. Specifically of robbery with intimidation of person extortion under Article 294, Paragraph 5 of the Revised Penal Code, and crucially in relation with Section 6 of RA 1175, the Cybercrime Prevention Act.
Okay, so convicted on robbery via cyber means. What was the sentence?
He was sentenced to an indeterminate imprisonment, six years as the minimum, up to 11 years, one month, and 11 days as the maximum. The court also noted that because the PHP 15,000.0 was recovered during the entrapment, no separate civil liability was ordered.
Right. So Tria appeals this conviction. Naturally, what happened to the Court of Appeals?
The Court of Appeals, in a decision dated January 10, 2020, and they later denied his motion for reconsideration, on December 15, 2020, they affirmed the RTC's conviction for robbery. The CA was pretty clear. They held that Tria did commit robbery by threatening AAA and demanding money to delete those photos. They found AAA's testimony and identification credible. And SPO2 Benavente's corroborating testimony, the extracted text, the overheard calls, that really solidified it for them. They saw no reason to doubt the trial court's assessment of the facts.
So two courts find him guilty of robbery through intimidation using technology. The case then makes its way to the highest court, the Supreme Court. What were Tria's final arguments there? What was his last attempt to overturn the conviction?
He raised three main points before the Supreme Court. First, he attacked the credibility of SPO2 Benavente, the cybercrime investigator. He argued Benavente didn't do enough due diligence to actually identify who was making the threats, claiming he just relied too heavily on AAA's word. He even pointed to his phone logs showing a 0.00 call duration for one call to AAA, trying to suggest, I guess, that the call didn't even connect properly or wasn't substantial.
Okay, questioning the police work. What was his second argument?
The second argument focused on the integrity of the text messages themselves, the digital evidence. Remember, SPO2 Benavente admitted manually copying many messages, which took 2 whole days.
2 days.
Yeah. So Tria argued that during that time, his confiscated phone could have been tampered with, its contents altered potentially to better fit the prosecution's narrative. It raises that whole chain of custody question for digital evidence.
That's a legitimate concern in cyber cases, for sure. And his third point?
His third point went back to a core element of robbery, unlawful taking. He stuck to his original defense story, that AAA voluntarily handed him the PHP $15,000. She just asked him to hold it, he claimed, because she didn't have a bag.
So no force, no intimidation, just helping out.
Exactly. He argued the element of forcible taking, crucial for robbery, was completely missing.
Okay, so how did the government, represented by the Office of the Solicitor General, respond to these three arguments?
The OSG, representing the people, primarily argued for dismissal based on, procedural defects first. They pointed out things like Tria failing to attach necessary parts of the court records to his petition, submitting only scanned copies of his verification and certification documents, and issues with the affidavit of service like lacking proper proof of the person's identity who swore it. Technical grounds.
Standard procedural arguments.
Right. But beyond those technicalities, the OSG maintained that the Court of Appeals was absolutely correct on the substance, on the merits. They argued the conviction was sound.
It's always interesting how procedural issues come first. Did the Supreme Court agree those were grounds for dismissal?
Yes, they did. The court noted right at the start that these procedural defects, the missing attachments, the scanned copies, the affidavit problems, were in themselves sufficient grounds to dismiss the petition outright. They reiterated that a Rule 45 petition, which is what this was, is mainly for questions of law, not for re-arguing the facts or re-evaluating witness credibility unless there are really exceptional reasons.
But they didn't just stop there, did they? Did they rule on the merits as well?
They did. Even setting aside the procedural flaws, the Supreme Court went on to address the substance of Tria's arguments and decisively denied his petition. They affirmed his conviction for robbery with violence against or intimidation of persons. However, and this is really important, they made a significant modification to his sentence.
Modification. Did they increase it or decrease it?
They increased it significantly. The penalty was modified to an indeterminate sentence starting at 6 years of prison correctional as the minimum, but going up to 14 years of reclusion temporal as the maximum.
14 years max. That's higher than the Court of Appeals sentence, right?
Yes. The CA's maximum was 11 years, 1 month, 11 days. This jumped to 14 years, and importantly, classifying the maximum under reclusion temporal signifies a much more severe penalty category under Philippine law.
Wow. Reclusion temporal is serious time.
It absolutely is. It reflects the gravity with which the Supreme Court viewed this particular crime.
So what was the Supreme Court's reasoning for upholding the conviction and then increasing the penalty like that?
The court found that all 4 essential elements of robbery were clearly established. 1, personal property belonging to another, AAA's money. 2, unlawful taking of that property. 3, intent to gain on Tria's part, which is presumed when demanding money under threat. And 4, the crucial element of violence against or intimidation of persons. The court explicitly stated that AAA was forced, coerced into parting with her money because of the severe threat to her reputation and her online business posed by those compromising photos. The intimidation was undeniable. Regarding the witnesses, the Supreme Court stuck to the principle. Factual findings of the trial court, especially when affirmed by the CA, are given great weight. They aren't typically disturbed on appeal. They found STO2 Benevente's testimony credible and specifically ruled that the phone conversation he overheard was admissible as an independently relevant statement. Meaning it wasn't offered to prove the truth of what was said in the call, but rather to prove that the call happened, to establish the context, the sequence of events leading to the entrapment, and Tria's identity. The court said it was established not just by the police officer, but primarily by AAA herself, and corroborated by the simple fact that Tria showed up at the agreed meeting place to collect the money.
So the evidence held up. But let's get back to that increased penalty. That's where the cybercrime aspect really hits home, legally speaking. How did they justify raising the maximum sentence to 14 years?
This is precisely where Section 6 of the Cybercrime Prevention Act, RA 10175, comes into play. It's a critical provision. Section 6 mandates that if a crime already defined in the Revised Penal Code, like robbery here, is committed by, through, and with the use of information and communications technologies, then the penalty imposed must be 1 degree higher than what the Penal Code prescribes for that crime.
1 degree higher.
Yes. Since Tria used digital means, hacking the Facebook page, uploading the photos, sending messages, using the phone to arrange the payoff to commit the robbery, the Supreme Court applied Section 6 rigorously. This automatically elevated the penalty range, leading to that maximum of 14 years reclusion temporal. It's the law explicitly recognizing the added severity when crimes move online.
It's a powerful application of that law. So, stepping back, what does this all mean? What are the key legal takeaways from this Tria y Cipriano case for us, for you listening?
Well, this case really reinforces several crucial legal principles, especially for our digital age. First, it hammers home the elements of robbery with violence against or intimidation of persons under Article 294. It makes it crystal clear that intimidation isn't just about physical threats anymore. It absolutely includes psychological coercion, especially using digital platforms to exploit vulnerabilities, threaten reputation, and basically scare someone into giving up their property. The court saw the digital humiliation as clear intimidation.
And the Cybercrime Prevention Act itself is obviously central here.
Absolutely central. The Cybercrime Prevention Act of 2012, RA 1175, and specifically Section 6, is shown here to have real teeth. This provision isn't just symbolic. It reflects a deliberate legislative choice to deter and punish cyber-enabled crimes more severely. When you use tech to commit an old crime, the penalty goes up. This case is a textbook example of that principle in action.
It also tells us something about how appeals work,
Right.
especially regarding facts.
Yes. It strongly reiterates the principle of appellate review of factual findings under Rule 45. The Supreme Court isn't there to retry the case or reweigh the evidence presented at trial. They defer to the trial court's findings on facts, especially when the Court of Appeals agrees, unless there's a very compelling reason, like a clear error or abuse of discretion, which they didn't find here. It's mostly about the law at that level.
And lastly, that point about the overheard conversation evidence.
Right. It clarified the admissibility of independently relevant statements. Evidence like an overheard conversation can come in, not to prove the statements in the conversation were true, but just to show the conversation occurred as part of the larger sequence of events, like setting up the meeting. It's about context, not truth value in that specific instance.
So this deep dive into Tria Cipriano v. People really highlights how our legal system is grappling with and adapting to the complexities of our digital lives. It serves as a, frankly, stark reminder of the serious consequences when personal disputes explode into cybercrime. It impacts individuals, sure, but also businesses' reputations online. The message seems clear. Using technology to extort or intimidate carries a significantly higher legal price now.
And it definitely makes you think, doesn't it? As our lives become more and more digital, as we share more online, how can individuals better protect themselves from this kind of weaponization of personal information? And maybe looking forward, what further legal tools or innovations might be needed to truly safeguard our digital lives from these really insidious forms of intimidation and extortion? It's an ongoing challenge.
Absolutely. We invite you, our listeners, to share your thoughts. What questions do you have on this case? What aspects of the ruling stood out most to you? Or what other questions does it raise about online safety, about accountability in this digital age? Let us know in the comments. And if you found this deep dive valuable and insightful, please do make sure to follow, rate, and subscribe to the Deep Dive wherever you get your podcasts. Your support truly helps us continue bringing you these crucial insights and important legal stories. Until our next deep dive, stay informed and stay safe out there.